Everywhere you look, it's like the world is designed to keep us addicted to pleasure. Fast entertainment, fast food, fast dopamine. People can't even sit in silence for 5 minutes without grabbing their phones. Bored, scroll, stressed, scroll, void, scroll, just find a quick distraction. And that's exactly why habits like masturbation have become so normalized. Introduction. But does anyone ever feel good after doing it? Most people feel guilt, regret, and even shame. That feeling isn't random. It's your fitra, your natural state, telling you that this isn't something pure. Allah designed us to find comfort in what is halal, not in quick, temporary fixes that leave us feeling worse afterward. Chapter 1. Islam's Stance. I know many scholars have said that this is not entirely haram or that it's only makruh, but let's take a step back and really think about this. Just because something isn't labeled as completely haram doesn't mean it's okay to do. Makruh means it's disliked by Allah, it's something that should be avoided. And when it comes to sins, small ones stack up. A person might start with something they think is minor, but over time, it weakens their self-control and drags them toward bigger sins. Even scholars who say it's not outright haram agree that it's only something a person might turn to in extreme situations, like if someone fears they'll fall into zina. But let's not fool ourselves. Most of the time, it's not out of desperation, it's out of habit, boredom, or easy access to temptation. And when something becomes a habit, it's no longer just about a one-time slip, it starts shaping who we are. Now, I get it. Some people say, it's not like I'm harming anyone, or at least I'm not committing zina. But Islam doesn't just guide us on what's harmful to others, it also teaches us what's harmful to ourselves. And this is where the problem comes in. Islam is very clear when it comes to human desires. Allah created these desires for a reason, but He also set boundaries for them. He tells in Quran, and they who guard their private parts, except from their wives or those their right hands possess, for indeed they will not be blamed. But whoever seeks beyond that, then those are the transgressors. Surah Al-Mu'minun 23, 5-7. This verse makes it clear that desires should only be fulfilled through a lawful spouse. Just like eating is a natural need, but we can't eat whatever we want, like stealing someone's food. Sexual desires also have their limits, and that limit is marriage. Anything outside of that, including masturbation, is considered unlawful in Islam. Scholars like Imam Shafi'i even compared it to zina and said it's forbidden. Allah sets limits. He does so for a reason. Chapter 2. The Example. Think about Prophet Yusuf as a man of incredible beauty, wisdom, and most importantly, self-control. He was tested in a way that most men today would fail. When the wife of Al-Aziz, a powerful woman, literally locked the doors and tried to seduce him, he could have given in. No one would have known. But what did he say? I seek refuge in Allah. Indeed, my master has been good to me. Truly, the wrongdoers will never succeed. Surah Yusuf 12:23. Now, here's the thing. Yusuf wasn't just some emotionless man who didn't feel desire. No, he was human like us. Allah even tells us in the Quran, and indeed she desired him, and he would have inclined to her had he not seen the proof of his Lord. Surah Yusuf 12:24. He wanted to, but he didn't. Why? Because his connection with Allah was stronger than his temporary desire, and when things got worse, when he saw that resisting wasn't enough, he made a dua that most of us wouldn't even think of. He literally asked Allah to put him in prison rather than fall into sin. My Lord, prison is more beloved to me than what they invite me to. Surah Yusuf 12:33. Imagine choosing years of suffering over a few moments of pleasure, all for the sake of Allah. That's real self-discipline. Now, I'm not saying we have to ask for prison to stop ourselves, but the lesson is clear. If we don't control our desires, they will control us. Chapter 3. Physical Dangers. We live in a time where enough research has been done on human psychology, development, and physiological structure that we can even pinpoint what hormones are messing us up in the long run. And I'm not even talking about spiritual damage yet, just the brain itself. When you masturbate, your brain releases a flood of dopamine, the pleasure hormone. Now, dopamine is not a bad thing. In fact, Allah designed it to motivate us. It's what pushes you to achieve things, to work hard, to enjoy real-life relationships. But here's the problem. When you keep triggering dopamine artificially through masturbation, your brain starts getting used to easy pleasure. You don't have to work for it. You don't have to build relationships for it. You don't have to put in any effort. Your brain basically rewires itself to crave quick, cheap satisfaction. And what happens? Your motivation for real success, whether it's in your studies, career, relationships, or even deen, starts to drop. You become lazy, unmotivated, and stuck in a cycle where nothing else excites you except that one habit, that one instant rush. And then there's the physical damage. Excessive masturbation can drain your energy like nothing else. Ever felt that wave of tiredness, brain fog, even muscle weakness, or just a general lack of motivation afterward? It's like running a marathon without ever leaving your room. You feel tired, unfocused, and sometimes even anxious or depressed. That's because your body is paying the price. Scholars have warned about this for centuries, and modern science backs it up. It weakens your body, makes you feel sluggish, and over time, even leads to anxiety and depression. Chapter 4. Spiritual Dangers. The worst part of it is the spiritual damage. Masturbation doesn't just affect your mind and body, it affects your soul. Think about it. After doing it, do you feel like jumping up to pray? Do you feel eager to open the Quran? Or does guilt start creeping in, making you feel unworthy of turning to Allah? This is where Shaitan plays his biggest game. First, he whispers, "It's just a small sin, it's better than zina." Then, when you fall into it, he flips the script and says, "Look at you. How can you stand in front of Allah now?" That's how he traps people, by making them feel too ashamed to return to Allah. At first, they might pray, right after, feeling guilty, asking Allah for forgiveness. But after a while, they start delaying it, then missing it, standing in salah, but their mind is somewhere else. No khushu, no connection. Even when they try to make dua, they feel like a hypocrite. Shaitan whispers, "How can you ask Allah for help when you know you'll do it again?" Even if you muster the courage to stand in front of him, there's the issue of ghusl. How many people delay their prayer because they don't feel like getting up to purify themselves? How many skip salah completely because they feel too lazy or embarrassed to make ghusl? It's a cycle that starts with one sin but leads to even bigger losses. First, you delay prayer. Then you start missing it. Then, your connection with Allah gets weaker and weaker until your heart feels empty. And when your heart is empty, what does Shaitan do? He makes you fall into the sin again, just to numb the guilt. It leaks into everything. It makes them numb to haram. They start looking at things they shouldn't, listening to things that damage their soul. They become desensitized. It becomes easier to justify worse sins because at least it's not that bad. It's a trap, a well-designed, well-researched, and perfectly executed trap by Shaitan to keep you stuck. And unless you break the cycle, it only pulls you deeper. Allah tells us in the Quran, "But if they do not respond to you, then know that they only follow their desires. And who is more astray than one who follows his own desires without guidance from Allah? Indeed, Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people." Surah Al-Qasas 28:50. Chapter 5. The Way Out. Breaking free from this habit isn't easy, but it's not impossible either. The key is to replace bad habits with good ones and to be intentional about staying away from things that trigger the desire in the first place. And the best part? Islam already gives us the perfect roadmap. The Prophet, peace be upon him, gave a simple yet powerful solution: fasting. He said, "O young men, whoever among you can afford marriage, let him marry, but whoever cannot, let him fast, for it will be a shield for him." Sahih al-Bukhari 5066, Sahih Muslim 1400. Fasting isn't just about skipping meals, it's about disciplining the soul. When you can't control your hunger and thirst for Allah's sake, controlling other desires becomes easier too. And then, of course, there's marriage, the halal way to fulfill desires while also strengthening your faith, building a family, and creating a bond of love and responsibility that Allah has allowed. But let's be real, how easy is it to get married today? We've set impossible standards for men and women. A man has to have a stable job, his own house, a car, and basically be rich before he even thinks about marriage. And women are expected to be perfect, flawless in appearance, skilled in everything, and somehow never make a single mistake. But here's the irony. We refuse to let young people marry early because they're not ready. But we hand them smartphones at 3 years old with unlimited internet access. We don't check what they're watching. We don't teach them self-control. And we don't realize that they are being trained to live on impulse. Think about it. Everything today is instant. You want food? Click a button. You want entertainment? Scroll. You want validation? Post a picture. Everything is just one click away. So when a young person whose brain has been programmed for instant gratification starts feeling certain desires, what do you think will happen? They'll look for the easiest, fastest way to fulfill it. And if we don't guide them, if we don't give them halal options, then of course they'll fall into haram. It's not just their fault, it's the environment we've built around them. But what if marriage isn't an option right now? That doesn't mean you're stuck. There are practical things you can do to regain control over your mind and body. You don't have to be a prisoner to your desires. Allah never burdens a soul beyond what it can bear, and with the right steps, you can break free. One of the biggest things you can do to help yourself is physical activity. Work out, play football, go for walks, hit the gym, whatever keeps you moving. A strong body leads to a strong mind. Staying busy physically also means less time and energy for unnecessary thoughts. And let's be honest, most people fall into this habit when they're alone. So don't isolate yourself. Try to be around people, whether it's family, friends, or just a social setting. Humans are meant to connect, not sit alone in dark rooms, glued to screens. Speaking of screens, this is another major trap. The more you scroll, the more you expose yourself to things that feed the urge. So set limits. Quit social media if you have to. Block sites that trigger temptation and reduce screen time. Instead, go outside, get some fresh air, soak in sunlight, touch some grass, literally. But above all, pray. This is your strongest weapon. No one can fight their desires alone, and you don't have to. Turn to Allah. Ask Him for help. Build your connection with Him through salah, dhikr, and sincere dua. Because at the end of the day, no matter how strong the addiction, Allah's help is always stronger. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The one who repents from a sin is like the one who never sinned." Sunan Ibn Majah 4250. That means, no matter how many times you've fallen into this, no matter how hopeless you feel, Allah's mercy is always open for you. The only ones who are truly lost are those who stop trying. If this is something you struggle with, don't wait for a perfect time to change. That perfect time is right now. Even if you've tried before and failed, try again. Share your thoughts below and let's support each other. The shaitan wants you to believe you're too far gone, but Allah is telling you, just turn back to me and I will erase it like it never happened.